DW Africa Link.
Open the border. That's been the call for more than a decade, ever since Kenya shut its border with Somalia in 2011. This was after a wave of attacks by Al-Shabab, the Somalia-based militant group. But now there's a shift. Kenya's President William Ruto says key crossings will reopen in April. So is this a lifeline after 15 years of isolation, or a risky gamble in a region where Al-Shabab is still active?
We
welcome the announcement by the President of Kenya to reopen the border. This move is very important for those of us living in the border region. The two sides are connected through trade, education, security, and social ties. It also comes at a crucial time, as both sides are facing severe drought and people need to move to access support.
That's what's coming up. I am Eddie Micah Jr., and you are welcome to Africa Link, the podcast connecting you to the stories that matter.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
The Kenya-Somalia border was officially closed in October 2011 after Kenya launched Operation Linda Nchi, which means secure the country. Troops were sent into Somalia after cross-border attacks and kidnappings blamed on Al-Shabab. Nairobi said shutting key crossings was necessary to stop militant infiltration, arms flows, and the movement of fighters. Now, since then, the border has remained tightly restricted. There's been attempts to reopen it, particularly in 2022 and again in 2023, but each effort failed after fresh security incidents. Now, President Ruto says it can no longer be justified for Kenyans to remain cut off from their relatives and trading partners across the border. To explore what this reopening could mean, I'm joined by Dr. Ahmed Kada, Somali analyst, and DW correspondent Mohammed Kaheye in Mogadishu. Hello and welcome to Africa Link. Dr. Kada, the Kenya-Somalia border is expected to reopen in April. Why is this such a big deal?
I think what makes the news so important and a big deal is only for two reasons. Number one is the timing. As you are aware of it, Somalia joined the East African community, and Kenya is the only country in the East African community that has a border with Somalia. So that makes us Somalia to feel that Kenya now can be the gateway to connecting Somalia to the other members of the East African community. That's number one. Number two, what makes the news so important is that the expected economic improvement or conditions that can come out from the opening of the border. I think most of the cities that lie on the border are heavily on Kenya in terms of social services, health, education, as well as trading. You know, they may go to Kenya, like Mandera, whatever, to buy goodies or receive some of the most important services for them. I think in general, it is very important for the economic livelihood of many Somalis living on the border, as well as Kenyans living in the cities surrounding the border.
Right. Thank you very much for that. I mean, look, this border was closed in 2011. That's about 15 years of a closed border. What has been the economic impact of the border closure, and who felt it the most?
I think the main challenge that has came from the closure of the border is that it has limited the movement of people and goods and services from Somalia to Kenya or from Kenya to Somalia. Because of that, people were having difficulties to to cross the border, either for business purpose as well as for receiving any social services in Kenya or in Somalia. In my opinion, the closure of the border was a challenge to both the economy, the economy of Kenya as well as the Somali. But I think suffered the most.
Right. Thank you very much, Ahmed, for that. Let me come to you, Kahiye, because you've been on this for a while, ever since President Ruto announced that the border will be opened in April. What has been the overall reaction inside Kenya?
Well, if you look at the reaction of the people from both sides, whether in Kenya and whether in Somalia, people living along the border of these two countries, which are neighbors, have welcomed this news with jubilation, with positive remarks, especially when we have been, collecting vox from people living along the Somalia's border, who have seen the first hand of what it means that this border had been closed for all those years. They were very happy. They were saying that, there has been, sometimes informal, conducting of businesses between the borders, which were sometimes very, risky but they were very happy in terms of, movement of people for trade, for education, for health, because most of the Somalis, because of the infrastructure, advanced infrastructure and advanced health sector and education in Kenya, a lot of Somalis move towards, Kenya to seek those services. Who are giving those services, who are Kenyan, heavily depend on their customers and people coming from Kenya, from this part of Somalia. So they were interdependent, and when the borders were closed, both sides have suffered a lot. So reopening and the announcement by President Ruto, while in Mandera, a border town next to Somalia, was a huge and significant news for people living on both sides of the border. And some of them said that, the president said it will be reopened in April, to the preparations and all, all in place. But they say that it would have been very better that they cannot wait the border to be opened as soon as possible. So you can imagine from their reactions that how they are waiting and to cross to the other side of the border to conduct their business, especially trading activities. So people are very, very happy.
Thank you very much for that, Kahi. What I really also want to find out is, I'm just wondering, how do people manage with the border closure? I mean, how did they get around it, if they did?
Well, there were two important scenarios, or two things that people were trying to use and get services across the border. It's only the land border were closed, but there were the air. There were air services which were going on already. Airlines were, transiting from both countries. So, but it was very, very difficult and costly for people living along the border to come all the way to Mogadishu, or others going along the way to Nairobi to take flights to Mogadishu, or a flight to Nairobi to take the services like trade or health or education, because these were the main three basic activities that people were, along these two countries were doing. So one, it was so costly, and other, it was risky in terms of security for especially people from Somalia side, because coming to Mogadishu, it was so risky and infrastructure was not good. And also some of the areas they pass through are controlled by the armed group, so it becomes very risky for them. And also the cost of flights from Mogadishu to Nairobi also costly than just crossing the border within some 30 minutes to other parts of the border to get the services. So there were some, we can say that there were also some informal, transaction of businesses along the border, which were not, permitted and also risky for people conducting those activities. But people tried to manage, but finally they were very happy that the leadership of the both countries are working together to reopen the border, especially from the Kenyan side, President William Ruto.
Okay, thanks for that, because that has put things a bit into perspective. One of the main reasons, if not the main reason, actually, I should say, the main reason for the border closure was due to security issues, right? Do people feel that that has been addressed now and that there are no security concerns at the border? What are you getting from them in terms of what they think about the security situation at the border now? Is it solved, or is there concern still?
Well, yes, the people from both sides of these borders of these neighboring countries feel like both countries need to work together to resolve the issues to do with security. And when you look at the past 6 or 7 years, the security, particularly the attacks by the armed group, which has resulted in the closure of the border by the Kenyan authorities, has reduced. It looks like the two sides have heavily invested, and it do officially exists that both countries, they share intelligence and also intelligence and security cooperation. There are Kenyan troops inside Somalia as part of African Union peacekeeping forces who are stationed along the border of where these two communities, border communities, are living. So the attacks have reduced in terms of because of cooperation between the two sides. And also, of course, without that cooperation will have not been possible without the communities living along the borders of these two countries. So significant reduction of the Al-Shabab attacks has, of course, led to the leadership of Kenya and, of course, Somalia to evaluate and to reopen the borders of these two countries. So for easy movement of people and goods. So the security has improved from the statistics that we have. And of course, the cooperation in terms of security with the local communities living along this border has also increased. So in general, it is a win-win situation for both the government authorities of this Mogadishu and also Kenya, and of course, civilians and the communities living along the border doing businesses, which opening of the border is very crucial for them.
Okay. Thank you, Mohammed Kahi, for that. Dr. Ahmed, so as our correspondent is saying, it's a win-win situation. The security threat is not a concern because both leaders have tried to fight it, and they are confident enough that this is a good time to open the border. So people are open for business. What needs to happen now to basically make up for all the years lost economically, since you are the economic experts? What do these two countries have to do now to strengthen the economic ties and be even better before the border closure?
For the time being, to take advantage of the economic and business opportunities between the countries, particularly after the opening of the border, I think the two countries need to improve the infrastructure, which is currently in very bad condition. Now it is very difficult to travel from Somalia border to Kenya. It takes time. The road is not good, and that makes businesses as well as the people to waste time and resources on that. That's number one. Number two, apart from the infrastructure development, they have to have effective cooperation between the border agencies of the two countries. Right after the opening of the border, massive people will come out, will try to come from Somalia or from Kenya to Somalia. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to cooperate. And that will make it very difficult for the border agencies of the two countries to coo So there should be a cooperation between the border agencies in terms of the immigration protocols, as well as the management of people moving from the two countries. I think these are the two immediate important issues. Maybe in the long run, maybe after 10 years, there should be full normalization over the border issues, and there has to be more discussion on how the two countries can make the border secure and easy to access.
Right. I mean, I think on that point, it takes us a bit back to the security situation, because if there's not good security at the border, then it's obviously going to start affecting businesses again. And if that's after it's opened, then it may be closed again, because, you know, this is not the first attempt to reopen the border. If you remember, as I'm sure you do, similar plans were in 2022 and again in 2023. It all collapsed due to renewed militant activity. So what does this pattern of, you know, okay, security issues at the border, possibly or not, you know, what does all of that suggest about the stability of Kenya's counterterrorism strategy?
I think what can be done is to make sure that the security agencies of Somalia and Kenya to work closely, and they have to have a kind of platform and a forum to ensuring the stability of the border. I think previously there has been a number of issues that what I can mention is that, you know, the cooperation has been very low, maybe because of weak government in Somalia, and maybe there was a time that Somalia there were no government in Somalia. But for the time being, there should be a security framework arrangement, and from there we can find out the plan and the way to making sure that the border is much safer. Currently, the security concern is not that much compared to 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So there should be a security arrangement at the border level.
Right. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to come to you, Mohammed Kaheye, for possibly your final words. Again, when speaking to people, as you said earlier, so much excitement. I'm just wondering the order of importance for people, right? What do people hope that the reopening will deliver first? Are we talking improved trade, restored family connections, because that was also a main issue, or just better security cooperation? What are people aiming for the most?
Well, a lot of people, especially those living along the border of these two countries, who have been impacted by the closure of the border, they are, you know, both they have mixed reaction. One, a concern that once it is reopened again, it should not be reclosed again.
We are only going to keep our fingers crossed until April to see if indeed the border is officially opened by Kenya. Until then, what can we expect?
Well, I think for me, one thing I think that the both countries should work on, especially Somalia, is that since Kenya now, a lot of Somalis depend, especially those living on the borderlines, depend on key services which are not, you know, well advanced here in Somalia, like health, like education, and also movement of trade. I think the authorities here in Somalia should also be committed and also work on more cooperation along the border. You know, like harmonizing, since both countries are part of the East African community, harmonizing the customs union of both countries along the border, building, you know, joint customs for officials from both countries, and also sometimes sharing immigrations, and also sharing also something to do with security, or so that threats or incoming threats that can halt or try to challenge this border reopening should be averted. So that's my suggestion and what I think. And also border communities living on both sides, since this it will be reopened in April, they should also take into consideration on a legal requirements, because when you're going to Kenya or someone is coming to Somalia, they need documentations. So she should put in place all necessary documentation so that there will be easy movements without any challenge to do with identification of all those things. So I think both countries is a very big movement, and so they should be considering that.
Right. Thank you very much, Mohammed Kahiye. You have 30 seconds for your final words, Ahmed.
What I want to say finally is that the opening of the border is very important for both countries as well as the member countries of the East African communities. Somalia has a lot to offer to the East African community, including oil and gas, the blue economy. So once the border is opening, it will be easy for businesses in Somalia to import or export to Kenya as well as the member countries of East African communities. For example, fish is highly needed in East Africa, and Somalia has a long coastal line. So there is an opportunity after the opening of the border.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Again, it's supposed to be in April. So fingers crossed that this time, after about 15 years, the border between Kenya and Somalia will be opened. Ahmed Kada, Somali economic analyst, and DW correspondent Mohammed Kahiye in Mogadishu. Thank you very much for your time. Nairobi has long argued that an open, poorly policed border makes it easier for Al-Shabab fighters, weapons and money to flow into Kenya, threatening people and towns. But as we've just heard, the prolonged closure appears to have hurt local economies far more than it strengthened security along the border. For residents affected by the border closure, this isn't about geopolitics. It's about survival, transport costs, food prices, livestock markets, and family connections. Reopening the border is a chance to bring these communities back into the formal economy.
It is very exciting to see that after 15 years of closure, the border will finally reopen. We appreciate the Kenyan authorities for this important decision, especially for Somali traders who depend on cross-border business. We hope traders on the other side feel the same way.
It is a big move. Traders on both sides of the border depend on each other for their businesses. President Ruto said the border will open in April, but I am requesting that it be opened as soon as possible because we cannot wait any longer. We welcome the reopening and we are hopeful that everything will move smoothly.
We welcome the announcement by the President of Kenya to reopen the border. This move is very important for those of us living in the border region. The two sides are connected through trade, education, security, and social ties. It also comes at a crucial time, as both sides are facing severe drought and people need to move to access support.
What do you think? Will the border be reopened? Share your thoughts with us on Facebook at DW Africa. Listen on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by the two Isaacs, Isaac Mugabe and Isaac Kaleji. And I am Eddie Micah Jr. Thanks for listening.
DW. Made for mind.